Hi, everyone. Congressman Blake Moore here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon. We've tried to push this back as far as we could. Hopefully we catch either a bit of a commute on the way home or before you've got more important family duties to head off to as well. So thanks again for carving out a little bit of time. We did have this originally scheduled for Monday night. But, you know, as I look outside, it's a beautiful day here. I wish it was snowing still, actually. But, you know, the East Coast got a pretty big snowstorm. And you know these Washingtonians, when they get like 3 inches of snow, because it wasn't they change everything. So the vote schedule got all changed and flights were all different and everything. So apologize that we had to change that from Monday, but tried to get it on the books as soon as possible. And so Thursday, I'm able to be back in Utah for a couple days, actually, right now. So thank you for joining in. Again, if you ever want to refer back to a Teletown Hall event you may have missed, check out the YouTube page or website. And as we get rolling here today, again, reminder to ask questions, please hit *3. That'll put you in a queue. *3 for questions. *6 will be for newsletter signing up. And we've reached over 30,000 newsletter followers. I care far more about the newsletter than any other type of communication. I care more about getting newsletter followers than I do about social media followers. It's where we can truly communicate good, accurate information. And I think I've had numerous people, seriously, several people over the last few weeks randomly say, "Oh, I love the newsletter, thanks." And I love that. That means the world to me. So thank you very much. I try to put some real time into it, and we'll continue to do that. So we'll double our efforts. So again, *3 for questions and *6 to sign up for the newsletter. I have 3 updates as people are coming in and getting into the queue. I'll share to kick us off, and then we'll jump into questions. But, I had the State of the Union this week, and I didn't even realize this actually took place. It wasn't until I caught it later. Sometimes when you're there and it's a little bit crazy because of the standing up and the sitting down and all this kind of stuff. But there was a lot of positives. The president articulated several of them. There were many bipartisan moments. There were many partisan moments. A year ago when we had the first address to Congress, there was this unwillingness to sort of even engage from either side of the aisle. But there was numerous moments where the entire chamber was standing and celebrating the time the Olympics. It's just proof the Olympics can bring us together. It was amazing. It was a neat experience. I was not expecting, however, a shout out from the Commander-in-Chief about my bill that we led in the House, the Invest America Trump accounts. Right before the event, as part of the leadership team, you go back and just briefly have a quick quick meeting before, very brief, take a quick picture. And as I did that, I said, Mr. President, Blake Moore from Utah, I'm the guy that led the Trump account legislation in the House, and it's been so great. Thanks for the support on it. That was very brief. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that program's awesome. That's doing so well." And that was it. And I took a picture and I got out of there. And then later on, he literally says, as he's saying, he couldn't remember. He obviously didn't remember my name. We're totally fine. And he says, the individual that led this initiative, or I didn't name it, somebody else did. The person that led the initiative was a very tall man, a nice man, a good man. So of course that has now become, the moniker that my team calls me. I've definitely been called worse, and that was a unique moment. But again, using this opportunity to highlight that this concept has been around for many years, bipartisan. To even highlight it, this is something that Cory Booker, Senator Booker, pretty progressive senator, has been championing, and Ted Cruz in the Senate. Those are the voices that have been pushing this. Charlie Kirk, it'd be a year or so ago, not a year, it would have been maybe in the late spring or summer, he had also posted, this is one of the best ideas in this entire piece of legislation. So voices from the entire political spectrum are highlighting this, and I'm so excited to have been a part of it. This is $1,000 in an investment account for babies born in the next 4 years, starting in 2025 through 2028. Hopefully, it will continue on. Hopefully, it's a successful program. But what's awesome about it is that individuals like Michael and Susan Bell have come in with a philanthropic angle, which is what you want to create. You want to create something that will encourage private investment, philanthropic investment, and they've contributed over $6 billion to also start these accounts from their foundation for approximately 25 million other children that are maybe ages 1 through 10 in areas. They've kind of pinpointed it in areas that are median income of 150 grand or less. But really, the option is there for most every child under 18, but particularly under 10, to be able to get these. We're going to change up the way we think about compounding interest and investments and thinking about the future. And it's something that's really exciting. And you spent some time in the State of the Union talking about it. So please, trumpaccounts.gov. Go to that. If you have a grandkid, if you have a child that's been born in the last few years, or if you got a 5-year-old you want to start, companies are going to be able to start contributing to these. There's a tax incentive to be able to do it, similar to the other types of world, and it's really exciting. So thanks for letting me re-highlight that. But this is something that we can take to everybody. I've been working on some other important bills this month. Legislation to prohibit foreign investment into collegiate sports, and all the NIL, name, image, and likeness agreements, restrict foreign investments in college athletics, revenue streams, things like that. That's something that I think we should all be able to get behind. This NIL stuff gets out of hand so quickly that it could easily be easily seen. These are educational institutions still, and we want to make sure that there's not a lot of peddling from foreign influences. So we've got this bill out. Congressman VC from Texas was the co-sponsor, and we do not want this foreign investment to be a playpen in the college sports to be a playpen for foreign money. The Comprehensive Congressional Budget Act, this reforms the annual budget process. We currently only vote on, let's say, one-fourth, maybe even less than that, maybe 22% of our entire budget. Everything else is just on autopilot. It's called mandatory spending or direct spending. It doesn't even go through an annual review. It doesn't even give you an option to make any changes or reforms to these types of things, improve, strengthen, anything like that. It's over 75 to 77% of our budget goes on that autopilot. I just want an opportunity to vote on that type of stuff. So it's a massive uphill climb, but I care deeply about this particular bill. Americans for Prosperity have pinpoint our office to be a part of it. I'm going to push hopefully we can get this through the budget committee at some point and get this more of a look. So it matters, and it would fundamentally change the way we do things and giving us a much stronger ability to be able to curb our deficits. And then we had a unique local bill in the House Natural Resources Committee. It's called the Fruit Heights Land Conveyance Act. Hiking and biking trails have always been a major component of recreation and community events along the Wasatch Front. There's a lot of red tape and everything related to the federal interaction with this. It makes it impossible for necessary trail maintenance, construction of new trails, even things that are existing trail that we want to make a continuation of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. This would be a very welcome recreational opportunity. And I appreciate Darren Franson, the Fruit Heights City Manager. He joined us in committee, came out to D.C. To be able to testify on this. It improves recreational access for many Utahns. I'm excited to see this sort of move through the process. This would not be just something that only benefits Fruit Heights too. The entire county region, Davis County, but again, it's a continuation of Bonneville Shoreline Trail, which has been seen as a very, very popular recreational point. So thank you for letting me get through some of that. We'll kick things over here to questions. Again, *3 for questions and *6 to subscribe to the newsletter. And we'll jump right in. The first caller I have is Debbie from Hooper. Debbie from Hooper, are you on?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you very much for taking my call. question I had, I got in the newsletter that said that they finally got it passed through Congress, thank God, that those of us that are receiving Social Security no longer have to pay federal taxes on it, which I always thought was weird. Why am I paying a tax on a tax? That didn't, for whatever reason, it didn't compute. Thank you very much, though. That was awesome. I really, really appreciate that. But I need to know, does that start this year or next?
Good question. I'll be very brief on this, and thanks for, highlighting this. This is a good solid thing. It doesn't make sense. It's changed over the years ago. I don't remember exactly when some of that change was, but it is a bit nonsensical. You will see it in this year's tax filing. So it starts for the 2025 year. So you will be able to take advantage of this immediately. You do not have to wait till you file in April of 2027. What you file this year will include it. And again, it is to qualifying seniors, Social Security recipients. They get to increase their standard deduction. So it's in the range of $6,000 and $12,000 given marital status, and it's directly targeted to that cadre of individuals on Social Security, and it reduces that tax burden. It's a great addition. It will free up some of the things that have built up over time in this issue. And you're right, it was neat to be able to get something through Congress. So thank you for highlighting that, and don't hesitate to reach out to our office if there's other questions on that. Excellent. Kay, we're going to go to Salt Lake City. Jason.
Hi, Congressman. Thank you for taking my call. This call is in relation to the apparent upcoming war with Iran. There's the largest buildup of military forces in the region since, I believe, the start of the second Iraq War. And so I haven't seen any comment from you on this. And this seems to be following a similar pattern to what we saw in Venezuela, where it was very apparent that war was coming or something big was coming, and members of Congress just let it happen without weighing in one way or the other. Now, the Constitution gives the authority under Article 1 to Congress, not the President. And so what Trump did by invading, sending in a force to abduct the President, that was an act of war. If that had happened here, we would have declared war the next day. All members of Congress would have supported that. And so my question to you is that there is a war powers resolution circulating through Congress, I believe started by Congressman Massey from Kentucky. This is a war powers resolution that would limit Trump's ability to wage war in Iran. Question one is, will you sign that war powers resolution? Follow-up question is, if you won't sign it, will you vote to declare war on Iran? And if you will do neither of those things, will you please explain why you don't think it's your constitutional responsibility to weigh in one way or the other? Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Great question. And at the center part of it, there have been many times this has come up over my 5 years in Congress. It's existed for several years longer. I actually highlighted this in my statement, and so I would encourage you to go take a look at my statement for the operation that took place in Venezuela about understand this, because we were not briefed on this. This was a highly classified thing, that operation that took place. No member of Congress was aware of the timing and what it would. There was some indication that something like this was going down. I was watching that closely. I actually was a little frustrated that I just kept seeing it creep and creep and creep. But I made it very clear in my statement, any sustained military presence must have congressional approval. So that's where the discrepancy is. Is the president, is the commander-in-chief able to make an authorized use of military force, or is he not? I believe there is situations where the president of the United States is able to make an authorized use of military force, but a sustained military presence, and there's even a timeline associated with that authorized use, that if it goes past a certain time period where there's military involvement, troops in harm's way in any way, shape, or form, they have to get Congress. So I encourage you to take a look at my statement. It kind of shares a little bit about how I would approach this. If there is sustained military presence in Iran, absolutely, no question, this has to be approved by Congress. But like Operation Midnight Hammer, I don't believe that needed to have that. That fell under the authorized use that did not require a declaration of war. It's getting very close to semantics on this. That's where I align right now, but things are always evolving and changing. And it's my understanding that there isn't going to be a vote forced on this. I don't know for sure how that plays out in the next few weeks, but it'll play out. Sometimes on these, I'll just kind of share a little bit of insight here. Like you might hear the Dems roar about this, or like Democrats roar about this for a while right now, but they wouldn't be roaring about it if it was Biden in the office, right? And then you'll hear some Republicans roar about this, and then they're going to go away, or they really hope that it doesn't come up for a vote. I will say with Thomas Massey, you get consistency there. I don't always agree with them, but you get consistency, and I appreciate that. I've actually been, different than him on this, but also very consistent too, where maybe I haven't gotten as criticized if I, voted one way when Trump was in office, didn't vote differently with Biden, but that's where I land. There is an opportunity. There is, a defined small window, but for sustained military presence, they do need a declaration of war, and I would be calling for that. I hope that helps give some perspective on that. Very important, very difficult situation. Thanks for being so close to it. So thank you, Jason. All right, let's go to Ogden. Carson. Carson in Ogden.
Hi, Congressman. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, first off, I just wanted to mention that you kind of dodged Jason's questions there, but I wanted to get on to my questions here for you, and I wanted to be direct with you. So recent polling has conducted with the NewsHour and Marist poll. It shows that roughly 6 in 10 Americans believe that the country is worse off than it was a year ago. And I think that reflects a real loss of confidence in leadership, and it demands transparency, urgency, and accountability from those elected to serve like yourself. Here in Utah, we are seeing the shrieking of the Great Salt Lake, which threatens to expose toxic dust that harms the air millions of us breathe. The American Lung Association continues to rank our region among the worst in the nation for ozone pollution, and this is measurable, documented, and urgent. Many of us do not see the level of aggressive federal advocacy that this crisis requires on your behalf. At the national level, Americans are demanding transparency regarding records connected to the Epstein files. Trust in institutions erodes when accountability is delayed or incomplete, as we've seen over the last couple of months. And Congress also has a constitutional duty of oversight, and reports across administrations have raised concerns about training standards, accountability, and the treatment of children in facilities overseen by the Immigration Customs Enforcement, commonly referred to as ICE. Humane treatment and proper training should be not partisan. It needs to be a base standard. This leads to a broader concern about accessibility to yourself and accountability here at home. Many constituents that I see report difficulty getting direct responses to emails. Public town halls are limited, if at all. You haven't held a public town hall in over a year, and every time that I call in or see online, you have no plan to hold a public town hall. When we contact your office, staffers often say that they cannot speak for the congressman or appear unable to address pressing national issues. That leaves constituents like myself feeling unheard and disconnected from their elected representative, and accountability is not optional in a representative democracy. Federal Election Commission data shows that significant portion of campaign funds your campaign funds come from political committees and PACs. When that's the case, it becomes even more important.
What question do you want to ask? You want me to address all these things?
Not distance yourself from them, sir.
Excellent. Okay.
That's all I have
good to let me respond.
Speak on it as you will, Blake.
Okay, great. Thanks, Carson. Appreciate it. First off, let me be very clear. I don't believe there needed to be a declaration of war from Congress to do Operation Midnight Hammer. If there's sustained military presence, I do. So that's as clear as I can possibly be on that one. So, and I believe that I articulated that. I don't know what the plan is with Iran right now. I do know that potentially up to 35,000 people brutally murdered. In Bosnia, there were 7,000 people that was genocide in Srebrenica, right? And we did the right thing. International NATO coalition, we did the right thing. That was happening. These are tough issues, and so that delineation between that was I'm sorry you didn't think that was very clear, but there's a distinct difference between the two, and I've over my 5 years have had a voting record on it, so you're welcome to look that up. Great Salt Lake. So I've actually passed legislation on this. Not an easy thing to do, especially when it's a sort of a perceived hyper local issue. It affects the entire Great Basin and it affects the entire Western United States. But we passed the Saline Lakes Act, the Great Basin Saline Lakes, that engages the U.S. Geological Survey to monitor and create solutions and options for action to be taken. So it's a data-driven aspect to that'll lead to hopefully the solution phase of it. I mean, our previous Speaker of the House, Brad Wilson in Utah, I mean, he and Tim Hawks led this issue like nobody else. This is a major priority for Spencer Cox. In his moments in the interactions with the president recently, President Trump actually tweeted and put out, now this is a tweet, I get that, but that just shows you that Cox has, relatively few, requests to make to an administration, and this is a massive priority for him. Doing a lot of significant work. There's a lot left to do. If we have drought and we don't have sustained and high snowpack, it's very, very difficult. But when we do have at least average snowfall, we're able to preserve and get as much water to the lake as possible. There was a lot. I can reach 10, 15,000 people doing this. I got it. I've done in-person town halls. I haven't done one for a few months. It's a really heavy time in D.C. right now, but we're coming up on a political season, which I don't, discuss on this call, but there'll be plenty of opportunities to be at public events. I was just at several of them this past weekend and have been for this entire month. So, yes, I get it, but I am. We hear the opposite just as much about how engaging we are. I just got to meet with a veteran that our casework team crushed it for him, and he had a lot of issues with the agency that he couldn't get solved, and we've been very we've had a strong. We're the office of we actually won the award this year of 435 members. Well, there was a Democrat and a Republican that win it, so half that on constituent service award. So that doesn't come from a void or anything. So thank you. I get the criticism, but I also see the other side of it. *3 for questions, folks. Again, *3 if you want to jump into the question queue, and we will go to Layton. David in Layton.
Thank you, Congressman, for taking my phone call.
You bet.
Got a question about this whole NIL business. Is
Fire
there any
away.
potential down the road soon where Congress is going to get involved with setting some kind of limits and guidelines, strict guidelines at that, on the whole NIL thing in college sports? Because my friends and I would watch college football a lot, and we'd see some of the NIL deals come across some of the players, and some of them are utterly ridiculous. And I've seen articles from the pro athletes that they see these college guys coming in with $5 and $6 million on NIL, and they think they're just entitled, and it's ruining the
The Michigan quarterback got, I think, about $12 million because Larry Ellison's wife was a big Michigan fan. There's better ways to spend that. I could say put it into Trump accounts, put it into these investment accounts for children. I played college football. I had to pay even a little bit of money just to get my Utah State sweatsuit. I obviously was just a punk little red shirt that wasn't a big deal, but college athletics, getting a chance to go get an education, get a stipend, get housing. It's a very valuable experience, but coaches were making a ton of money, and I believe that players should be able to have some freedom here. But the second it happened, it blew up. And NIL, which was designed to be like, hey, if your name, image, and likeness became valuable, you should get some proceeds from that. Then it turned into whatever donor massive thing was going to just, give direct contracts to people. It blew up. That's the point of my bill. Keeping foreign money out is because of how quickly this blows up into what I think is a harmful place, or just a deteriorating place. And we want to make sure that it doesn't solve the initial issue. I think there's two major problems. There's got to be some type of restraint on what money could be spent in it, but also this transfer portal stuff. It's insane, and it's also teaching young kids that no consequences, just go to another place, this and that, be flighty. I don't know. So I struggle with it. It's basically pro sports. I agree with you. We have something called the SCORE Act, and it was so close to passing. And just a few people held it up. It ended up, it does kind of what I talked about. It puts some constraint on some of these things that needs to be done. Some people don't like it because they think that the NCAA made this mess themselves, and we shouldn't be bailing them out. And there's some issues with it, with federalism, and we shouldn't be handling this at a federal level. But these are all, for the most part, they're public institutions, and we do have a role here because it's definitely gotten out of hand. So, like our bill, foreign influence, peace, and then the SCORE Act is something that was really close to passing. Hopefully, they can find a way to move that through, and get it before it totally ruins it. The Indiana Hoosiers were such an amazing story this year. I loved watching it. I loved seeing a school that had never really excelled in football to be so dominant, and like their coach and everything. But my goodness, when you look at how much money their players are making too, it makes sense that a lot of them are willing to go to Indiana, right, and change that entire program overnight. So that's just that's tough. It's not sustainable. So thank you for the question. Let's go to Leo in Clearfield. Leo?
Hey, Blake. Thanks for taking my question today, first of all. What I wanted to ask you about is very personal for me. I've actually worked with your office in the past. We're kind of still working on it. Unfortunately, your office hasn't been able to actually really make any real progress on the issues that I'm facing right now. But morally of the story is my wife and I are still waiting for some of her immigration paperwork to be processed. It's been years now at this point, and recently the legal pathways for her to actually progress forward in her immigration paperwork have been getting cut back and back to the point where statuses are getting cut. Her applications are getting put on pause. They're not even being reviewed anymore. So this situation, it's affecting us, obviously. I know it's affecting other people that we know too. And my question for you is, what is the actual plan to introduce any sort of comprehensive immigration bill to Congress? The current immigration bill that was passed in the 90s has a lot of holes, a lot of loopholes, a lot of different issues that presidents from either side of the political aisle have been abusing and taking, their own liberties with. And I feel like there really needs to be a fix in Congress to be able to make sure those systemic issues in immigration are fixed, and that there's actually fair legal pathways, especially for family reunification, such as myself and my wife, and people that are already in this process and trying to do everything the right legal way and encountering roadblock after roadblock.
Absolutely. Juan, thanks for engaging with our team again, and I say this to everybody. We can't solve everything. We run into often a lot of roadblocks too, but we're equipped and willing, and that's part of our constituent service. Whole approach is to try and be a voice on your behalf. So please continue to work with us. If there's any potential options to get this going, it's exactly right. We have too many people stuck in the middle of trying to go through all the legal processes, and it's so burdensome. It takes so much time, and they're doing everything right. They're doing everything they should do, and then there's now concern of they're kind of running to the end of the line there. There are multiple pieces of legislation that do what would be the way to solve this, and that is shore up the border security. Right now, take the moment that, hey, we recognize that if we just go back to the basics, President Trump and Pence put in really unique, strong, sensible things like the migrant protection protocols, right, where that reduced a lot of border activity, aka cartel activity, and we saw a lot of positives from that. But it was an executive order, and then when Biden came into office, he didn't do those executive orders. He took away those executive orders and let the existing policy, and kind of like what you said, probably existing policy for the 90s when there's a different element here, that it was insufficient, and there's a lot of loopholes, and the whole parole authority piece and requesting asylum, and then you're stuck here. It's just a mess. So then President Trump comes back into office, and he repeats most of the same stuff he did, and it's literally been a very positive border security. So right now, there's numerous Democrats that are like, okay, we realize that the type of border activity, the illegal crossings that took place during the Biden administration are bad, and we need to fix that. We have, I think, a chance to get border security legislation passed, along with looking at these in type of improvements that can be done, like potentially in your wife's case, and you could even couple those things together. There's lots of legislation out there that touch on various elements of it, and that has been communicated over and over and over to the White House from voices within the Republican Party from every spectrum, right, and from every type of district or whatnot. And I believe there is a recognition from the administration that we want to potentially do something at this. There's been 3 different moments where President Trump has said, hey, we need to address some of the workforce issues, and we want strong borders, but we also got to realize blah, blah, blah. So there's been a few of those, and it would be tough to, it's been a 30-year problem. It'd be tough to find the sweet spot that you could get a 60-vote threshold in the Senate on something like this. I'm hopeful though, and I've been a voice on talking about it. We do a lot of cases for individuals, doing one right now that I care deeply about. So, I'm at a loss because in my practical, logical head, the solution's right there. Sometimes big issues like this get thwarted. So that doesn't give you an enormous amount of confidence, I know, but I will say that it has been broadly communicated. In fact, we're meeting as a leadership team this coming Monday, and many groups within the conference, this is their number one issue that they're going to take to leadership. So thank you for that. Please continue to work with our office however we can be helpful, and hopefully we can see some help there. Let's go to Clearfield again, to Dimitri in Clearfield.
Thank you, Representative Moore, for letting me speak. I'm
Absolutely.
11 years old, and I was... What?
Nice, 11 years old, good.
And I would like to ask, would it be possible to lower the voting age to 11, and if not, then 16?
All right, so I got 2 options. Is that what your final request is? You're going to put me in that
What?
spot? 2 options. Thank you, Dimitri. That's a great question. that probably won't happen. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. But I just left a high school today that I got to have a really, really robust conversation, and I am just floored with the youth of our state and how involved they are. I would actually trust many of you to vote at that young age. I probably need to teach my kids a few things before I let them go vote. They're 13, but you sound like you're probably pretty responsible. So that's going to probably stay at 18, but I love that you want to and you want to be involved. And there are a lot of ways. When I was your age, I did a lot of volunteering on election night. My mom worked for the Weber County Commissioner's office, and I would go do a lot of volunteering, helping with those nights. There's lots of ways you can get involved, and then you'll be right ready to go and maybe be in my seat one day. So thank you, Dimitri. Good job. Let's go to Monica in Ogden.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My question was about divisiveness. I think all of us are really tired of divisiveness. And so I was wondering what kinds of things you're working with Democrats on, especially on the big issues, rather than, like, I hear a lot of talk of, like, just blaming the Democrats or just blaming Republicans. So what are some things that you've been doing to work across the aisle on some of these big issues that maybe we don't hear about?
Yeah, absolutely. I get this question so much, too. I appreciate it. All right, folks, this is not me trying to brag. Now I'm going to brag. I have the most, from 2021 when I joined Congress to today, you look at anybody else in that cohort of those 5 years, I have more bills passed than virtually anybody. It's of that same tenure and definitely longer. I care about getting stuff done. I care about finding productive ways to exist in this hyper partisan world. And all that stuff has got broad appeal, strong, they got strong conservative bona fides, worked, I've been in the majority for about half that time and in the minority for half that time. And I was able to get things done in both situations. The Great Salt Lake bill was led by me and one of the most liberal members of the Progressive Caucus from Northern California. Several others from my first term. Okay, and then this, like I mentioned, this Invest America, these investment accounts for children. This stuff is very broadly accepted. Now, the vehicle that it may have passed in might have been a partisan bill because you get one of those a year to do kind of like some of your main initiatives. But for the most part, look at the appropriations process we just did. We spent less money this year than we did last year, and we had tons of Democrats support it, right? In an appropriation cycle, we passed all those bills with broad bipartisan support. You don't hear about that stuff all the time. You don't recognize that that's the way that is, but virtually every bill that passes has to pass the 60 votes in the Senate, and that's, you're going to need a dozen Democrats or so on. And we've been able to get several things like that. All of the financial services stuff that is crypto-related. So I'm just spouting off a bunch of different things here. There's more than you expect, but what sells, what builds a social media presence is when vitriol kind of comes in. So I appreciate it. I love that you're focused on that. I hope everybody wants me to be productive, and I'll continue to do so. And that's why I hope people follow my newsletter, because they get to see actual stuff that's going on. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's go to Salt Lake City with Sumner. And I'm trying. My team always reminds me, hey, try to be a little quicker, so we can get to more questions. That's also, I tend to drown on a little bit sometimes, especially when it's a topic that I love. But I think I'm doing a pretty good job, but I'm sure they'll tell me I did a bad job, because that's what their job is to do. We are going to go to Sumner in Salt Lake City.
Yes. Hello. My question is regarding the $1,000 investment for children. First, I have a little bit of a concern about calling it the Trump investment accounts. It kind of makes me worry about the personal financial gain that may be happening there versus the money directly going to the parent or the child. Can you talk a little bit about this? billion-dollar account startup. How does that work? Are they investing? I just want to know the steps in it so that this is not a personal financial gain situation, but one that will actually benefit the recipients it's intended to go to.
1,000%. Love that you're asking that question. Great to get clarity on. Cannot be more clear here. There is nothing like that of the sort with this. And honestly, if folks choose not to sign up for one of these and they have a grandchild and they don't remind them because it's called a Trump account, like that'd be hugely disappointing. And I get that. And I get that there's always going to be some partisan nature to that. I want to dispel that as much as possible. It is what it is, and that's the way that it ultimately got passed. And what you've seen from the administration on this is to really be inclusive and get this out there to as many people as possible. So there is no financial gain at all for anybody in the Trump administration, Trump world, Trump business adventures, all that kind of stuff. These are funds that will be invested in a diversified portfolio at a very low-cost index fund, basically designed to maximize long-term growth, right? So this is a Roth 401k. This is like your IRA. What this does is it allows for someone to be focused on that investment. Like I want it to be more of a retirement piece. You can use it at multiple intervals throughout your life, but I want it to be more of a long-term. And this is just a low-cost index fund that will be, very similar to anything that you would have in an IRA or a mutual fund. Parents own this. We're working on clarification for foster children because there's some guardian, there's some movement sometimes in the guardianship of those amazing little kids. And working through some of those technical fixes, but this is a very straightforward, very beneficial program. Please engage on it. There's nothing sordid at all with that. So thanks for asking that, and I hope that clarified it a lot for folks. Again, everybody, *3 for questions. Love. Oh, and also, Michael Dell and Susan Dell, like they've actually. I've gotten to meet them several times. Such a neat experience to be able to meet these people that are so philanthropic. They're $6 billion. They're going to give to kids across the country, 25 million kids across the country, starting up with an account. It's a small amount that they'll ultimately be able to fund each one, but that gets it started, gets them going. They now have the account. Now their parents at their job, that company might say, hey, we're going to do $100 a year for anybody that has a child investment account. We're gonna donate to that. Philanthropists can continue to do that. And he's like, I don't want a single soul, whatever it's named. I don't care. I don't want a single soul not to take advantage of this. This is a very benevolent, unique thing. So thank you. Let's go, Steve from Salt Lake City. You on, Steve?
Oh, yep, I'm here. Okay.
Yes, sir. Fire away.
So my question relates to the rule of law regarding tariffs, because we know the tariffs in 2025 are illegal. The Yale budget law.
Let me clarify. The IEPA tariffs. So there's 3 versions. You can do 301, 232, IEPA. That's what the Supreme Court. Just want to jump that in there. Please continue.
Yeah, they are illegal. That's been established. The Yale Budget Lab estimates the average household had to pay $1,800 more for goods because of these illegal tariffs. But there's now talk from the executive branch of a new 15% blanket tariff, which adds to the affordability crisis. So my question is, will Congress vote on the new 15% tariff, and will you vote no? And then what specific actions will you take to refund those illegal tariffs in 2025?
Excellent. Thank you so much. I am at the heart of all this. And at the same time, haven't had much action on it because the Trade Subcommittee and Ways and Means is where this would go through for any congressional piece. Over the years, over the last several decades, Congress has given some limited authority regarding certain time frames in the 70s and whatnot. And regarding those two specific questions, okay, so there is a need for the litigation to finish itself out. The clarity on what refunds ultimately look like will be a part of that. So I'm not in a position to be able to say whether I'm going to vote yes or no when I don't even have details of what the actual legislation will be. I can say this: I sat in front of Secretary Lutnick in a closed door meeting, and I kind of watched my colleagues on the committee being like, people talk differently, even then when the individuals here, they're always just a little bit too rosy. And one of the staffers came up to me and said, "Hey, Blake, we know it's okay to be yourself today." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, good." I was very respectful, but I laid out 3 specific examples. 1, tariffs. What are the goals? The 3 goals. The 3 goals: 1, reshoring, trade deals, and revenue. You could add a 4th in there about trade balance, but I think I don't believe tariffs are helping us get to any type of significant trade balance. We're never going to get to a trade balance because we have the strongest economy. We're not going to necessarily get there. I'm going to leave that one out of there. And I laid out the case for them, and I was very clear with them on how this is hurting businesses, especially manufacturing. It's not able to reshore when you have input costs as much as they are. And I went through each example, and he looked at me and goes, "Congressman, okay, thank you. I needed to hear that. I get that." And I think he appreciates when I was willing to push back, but, thoughtfully, because our team has been heavily involved in this. We have gone to the administration on numerous items. Here's where we are now. Jameson Greer, trade ambassador, good relationship with him. The way that President Trump had done IEPA was sporadic. Maybe the nicest word I can use in some cases, but some days it was up to 100%, and 3 days later it was down nothing, and it was used in that way. I want that to end. I want businesses to know what they have ahead of them. So instead of what will I vote no against, I want to get to a point where we can work with the trade ambassador to actually put some things together. 1, I want to codify some of these deals that we have done. There has been good leverage, and we have gotten countries to come to the table. I want to codify that so we can build on that. 2, we cannot have 15, 20% things that are hurting U.S. businesses. When people are illegal, when other nations are illegally dumping, that way we need to penalize them. I want to have some leverage to penalize bad actors, but increased costs like that are ultimately not good. I am very concerned, though, about just a massive, stimulus check revenue back. I've pushed back against the administration. I kind of got a sense that maybe they wanted to do some stimulus checks. I don't think that's a solid approach. I think that's inflationary. We've seen that in previous administrations, and we've been able to reduce the deficit this year with some of that extra revenue. So what my focus will be on legislatively is, okay, here's where we are now. I don't know what the Supreme Court's going to say on refunds. That's got to have some time to play out. But I want to build a strategy and a plan to go forward for us to be able to predict, understand if we get revenue, great. I want it to go to reducing our deficits, and get it to a point where we have a strong USMCA. I believe strongly in a good trade negotiation with U.S., Mexico, and Canada. And President Trump signed that 2018, 2019. And it's kind of up for renewal. And that's an area that I want to be doing some really substantive work. So thank you for that. I don't know if I specifically answered your question, but I don't have the specifics of what you're asking me to vote on, so I don't ever give that. But that is legislatively the area that I want to move forward. And hopefully the administration wants to engage on that. That's kind of what I put in my statement when the Supreme Court ruling came out, was I've heard from businesses. This has been difficult to navigate, and I want to find some solutions going forward. There were many things that President Trump did in his first term that everybody was really worried about, and then Biden never changed them. They've existed on. Companies have, businesses have been able to react and predict, and it's when it's super unpredictable, that's when it's really bad. So thank you so much. All right, let's go to the great city of Logan, which, by the way, my 4th grader came home yesterday and said, "Dad, guess what I got for my county?" It was And I looked at him like, well, I had box elder when I was in 4th grade. I still remember my poster of the fruit stands and the golden spike, and he got cash. So he's really excited. So he's going to be able to do a report on cash. And we've got a caller from Logan, Lawrence. Lawrence, are you in?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. And thank you, Congressman. My question is how we really grow the economy. And the number one way is oil production. And we sit with some of the largest fields in the world, believe it or not, they're in Utah. Some of those are Utah.
Yeah.
How do we get the lands back from the feds so there can be drilling and encouragement on these programs and not roadblocks? And we even found that in some cases the rock was worth more than the oil in these fields right here in Utah. So what are we doing to open it up so we can do that? And the original drill, baby, drill was actually 20 and 20 million barrels a day of new oil production in 20 years. And with that, you'd grow the GDP by 20% of the minimum, maybe as much as 50% because of the new technologies. So how do we get that going so we really can, and we can transfer that to wealth? The families' wages are down 60 to 70% per David L. Walker, former head of the General Accounting Office, versus 1970. How do we do that so we can get those wages up and help every family? I mean, everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Lawrence. Appreciate it. This is solely in the purview of permitting reform. The House passed the SPEED Act, major permitting reform package. It had significant Democrat support. And some things changed in the amendment process, right? Very end, small things, but just enough to be able to sort of like have some partisan fights about it. And then the Senate is going to take. The Senate's got to take it up. We sent them the package. This concept is very accepted. In fact, there's a group called No Labels that Senator Ron Johnson, and Markwayne Mullin, if you know them, are heavily involved, working alongside, I think, like Welch and a couple other senators. This is like their number one issue, right? So permitting reform, and the beautiful part about it is it's good for all types of energy. So it's not just an oil and gas play. This is important for transmission lines. This is important for transmission lines is most of what it is. So if you have any type of solar game or electrification type of production, the permitting reform that gets at that too. So there's an enormous amount of benefit that comes from this across the energy spectrum, and we've passed it already out of the House. It's good. It's transparent. It's all. There was some fights about, I think, offshore wind. It's not necessarily something, we're not putting any of these in the Great Salt Lake, so there's not a lot of issues, and so this became kind of an East Coast fight with some of the R's and B's out there. But as it's over in the Senate, they'll have to kind of settle in on a spot that makes sense, and hopefully that it comes back to the House. I know, and the administration's definitely interested in it as well. So that's a great question, and you're right. It comes back to national security, and it comes back to economic growth. So thank you. I think we have Jacob in the Terrace. I was just in the Terrace the other day checking out a new fire station, not station, but a fire truck that we were involved with. So Jacob, you on?
Yeah, that's me. And my question is more concerned about the political climate being so, again, being divisive. But it's what I want to particularly focus on is what we can do, especially to be more outspoken against the divisiveness and stuff. I feel it's very disturbing to see things even like during the State of the Union, we have calling out the Democrats, basically saying that they're irredeemable. And I think that's inexcusable in a political standpoint. It's kind of a failure of a politician to basically look at their potential allies and concretely seal them as enemies, because our nation needs to be building unity rather than division in order to survive. So my question for you really is that would you be more outspoken against that kind of stuff? I applaud you on your efforts to pass these bills that you've had success in being bipartisanship. So I would say, would you expand that to not just work bipartisanship, but to speak out against the anti-bipartisanship that keeps being so pervasive throughout both the House and the rest of Congress and even the entire executive branch, because they seem to thrive on it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jacob. My comms director, my press secretary on the comms team, she's from Washington Terrace, actually. So we're going to use this as an opportunity to tell her that she's got to find a way to solve this problem. Not to make light of that. I just today spoke to a group at Highland High School where my parents went, and I was able to have my parents there. It was a neat thing that I got to do. A lot of amazing, good questions and some harder questions too. But it was neat. I literally showed a video of me and Salud Carbajal, a Democrat from California, where we did one of the Disagree Better things. Yeah, that's a cool initiative. Like, I know that it's always good to it's common to as much as you want it, Jacob. There's a lot of people that don't want it as well. I don't understand that, but it is what it is. The Disagree Better stuff, it's actually really good. It's just telling us we're going to disagree. It's accepting the fact we're going to disagree and just do it better. So I have a video out with him that's been put out there, engage in that type of stuff. So no, it's not just about passing legislation. It is about communicating. I think the way that I try to do one of the best ways is if people truly understood the policy issue at hand, they could say, "Oh, I now get your perspective. I may not agree with it, but I get your perspective. We have to do a better job." And this is what I challenged the students all to do: was follow the flip side. The flip side is a daily newsletter that sends one topic and what the right and the left is saying about it, what they're writing about it, what's being communicated. And oftentimes they're like, hey, the right, the left agrees, the right is divided. Kind of like it was on the tariffs, right? And sometimes it's like, hey, many from both sides have come to an agreement on this, or it's harshly partisan. But you're actually looking at solid arguments instead of just, online social media rhetoric. So it's not been a part of my vernacular, right? I am who I am. I'm just a normal guy that, I've worked in the professional world with Democrats and Republicans, people that have different viewpoints, and we can't go get into a bunch of spats like you sometimes see in the debates back and forth in Congress. Anyway, so I will continue to model the behavior that I am, just being myself, and being as productive as possible, and being strong conservative voting record that I do have. Like, I get there's definitely a way to do that. Some of my closest friends are Democrats. Jimmy Panetta is one of them. I brought him to Utah. We held a forum at University of Utah. We met with my deficit task force. We went out onto the Great Salt Lake together, and look for any of those opportunities. So seriously, thank you, Jacob. I appreciate it. And all the questions. I definitely tried to keep it a little more quick on my responses. My favorite time in Utah high school sports is this week, and I'm going to take my boys off right now and head over to the state championship tournament. And the school that they're going to go to, they're playing tonight, so it'll be a fun. It should be a fun night. So, thank you all so much for everything. Don't hesitate to reach out. Please sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, and keep following along, and look forward to engaging more. Have a great day.